This is a how-to video for interpreting your North and South Node axis in your birth chart, which from my perspective is the most important framing set of symbols in your incarnation, telling you the intention that you took it with in terms of where to move, how to move forward, everything else being folded into that. If you haven't already seen my video called On Balancing Your Incarnation Through the Lunar Nodes, please check that out first and look at the symbolism and what goes into interpreting it. And then in this video, I'm going to go ahead and use an example chart to do so and show you the 7 steps toward grasping your spiritual evolution. The chart that I'm going to use is of Jack Parsons. He was a rocket scientist who was very instrumental in developing rockets and fuel and ultimately leading to the space program in the US. And he also was somebody who had a large influence in Thelema, which is a new Aeonic religion. He was born October 2nd, 1914 at 8:45 p.m. And I won't go into much detail on his life, just to say that he was somebody who struggled with money when he was getting educated and wasn't able to go to college and get a degree. So he had to scramble quite a bit to fulfill his passion of developing rocketry. He did so with some colleagues. Eventually, he also did find Thelema and got involved in the early days of the Ordo Templi Orientis in the United States. And is a very colorful character. I definitely recommend some books that you can see below in this video to check him out. He's a very interesting person. Ultimately, he died in an incident of getting blown up. It's not clear if he was an accident, suicide, murder. There's all kinds of theories. Very interesting person. So in any case, I'm going to go ahead and interpret his chart for you so that you can learn how to do so with your own chart with these 7 steps. Now I'm going to show you how to apply these simple steps for analyzing your North Node on Jack Parsons' chart. His North Node, as you can see here, is in the 10th house in Pisces. So the first place in the worksheet is to go to the South Node and say, in many incarnations, I have been focused on, and here we have the area of life is the 4th house. So he has been focused in many incarnations on his private life, home, family, possibly ancestors. That's less likely, but very much about his own private domain and building that up. And now in step 2, now it's time to develop a public presence. It's time for him to figure out what he can contribute to the whole world and make sure that that happens. And of course, as we know through his biography, that he sort of had a twofold or inner and outer mission that he knew about. He was very conscious about it. One was to send a rocket into space, and that would be an achievement thought impossible in his day, and build him a reputation for rocketry, for science. And in a more interior sense, he was unfolding his will. He was a Thelemite and believed in the true will, and he felt that he was part of developing the new Aeonic current, and by developing the God-man inside of himself, actually realizing his true potential. And so for him, the 10th house, meaning the public eye, the public sphere, was the place to do that, mainly through his rocketry pursuits. And so going on to the next step, I've tended to approach life through, and then you go to the sign of the South Node. So in here we have Jack's South Node in Virgo, and he's tended to approach life through what is Virgo. And here I've given you, if you're part of the class, I've given you not only the house worksheets, as well as I've given everybody the videos for the North Node through the houses, but if you're part of the paid class, I've also given you essentially cookbooks for the signs and the houses all together. So you can always, just look at those worksheets to answer these, to fill these blanks in. Of course, you're welcome to do more than that, to go beyond to books, videos, websites, and things like that, and do your own research on your South Node and North Node. In any case, he has the South Node in Virgo. What is Virgo? So Virgo is essentially being very analytical, making fine distinctions, being grounded and earthy, practical, being of service, being careful and of service. So in his, presumably if you kind of combine the meaning of the fourth house in Virgo, presumably in those prior lifetimes, he approached developing his family life, his home, his castle, his private life, making that into an important refuge for him and perhaps those he loved through caution, through careful work, through analysis, maybe mundane work, through taking care of the details and things. So that's his accustomed style. So this is somebody for whom it might be uncomfortable to go in the opposite direction. So now it's time for me, Jack Parsons, to develop to approach this 10th house through what? Pisces, that manner. So what is the Piscean manner? It's truly letting go of not only the details, but truly oneself. It's really letting go of what you can touch and feel. It's essentially letting go into the unknown, surrendering. And there was a lot of, looking back to his biography again, remember, a lot of resistance to listening to him because he had a vision, he had a belief, he had a faith in the ability to make rocketry work. To develop a type of fuel that would work, that would actually get the propulsion necessary to get an object into space. But he had to convince a whole bunch of professors that it could be done to try to get the resources of Caltech. And he didn't really have the math background. He had some help with some other colleagues, but he himself didn't have great math skills. So he was truly just operating on pure guidance. Some people didn't believe he had the abilities to back all this up, but clearly he did because he managed it. But he had to let go of everything except this pure guidance and truly give all of himself, risk everything, risk his family's finances. His burgeoning family was really suffering financially when he was doing all of this. Do whatever it took to get the materials he needed in order to fulfill this vision, this dream for the public. And so that's his Piscean approach. And it truly was spiritual. He truly was giving something of value to all of humanity. He believed himself to be furthering the new aeon of Aquarius. Next step, I get help from my, and so here you have to look at the planetary governor of the sign of the North Node. Again, if you're part of the paid class, I've given you a cheat sheet for this. Otherwise, you can look it up. But as you may know, may or may not know, the planetary governor of Pisces is Neptune. So now to say he gets help in his mission, in his evolution, his spiritual evolution, by focusing as well on Neptune. And now we're going to look at it by house and sign. But first, let's talk about Neptune itself. Neptune is the governor of Pisces, of course, as I just said. Neptune is in the tree of life. It's one of the balancing planets. It's Kether. It's the top of the tree. It's basically I am. It's the pure consciousness of being. And wherever that is in your chart, it's where life tends to push you into dissolution, back into the source. So this is the ultimate blending of your life with the cosmos. And so now we have to look at what does it mean to have Neptune in the third house and in Leo. So next step is the house itself. So I tend to get help from Neptune, that's the governor of the North Node, in which area of life, and that's the third house. And so there's a couple of ways of interpreting this in the case of Jack Parsons. So the third house in general can govern things from relationships with siblings, if there's anything here I don't know about it, but it also governs communications with people next to you, nearby, and it governs communications more generally, so writing and things like that. So we can look at a couple of things. So one is that he brought that sense of our cosmic being through his communications, through his speech and writing, to his colleagues, to people we talk to on a casual basis, so, whether it be administrators at the college, scientists, other people in public that could help him get his cause noticed. And that was, so there's kind of something infectious or something mystical about what he brought, which for some people could be persuasive, maybe for others not so much. But also we have to look at his writings in the arena of Thelema. And he didn't produce a whole bunch, but what he produced were some very fine essays. For example, he wrote a book called Freedom is a Two-Edged Sword. And that really goes into the ethos of and the ethics of the new aeon and what is required of the human now. And very persuasive writing, very inspiring. And so that can be an interpretation of the third house in terms of interpreting this as his spiritual mission. Now, looking at the next step, I get help from my ruler with Neptune, not only in the area of the third house, but also in the sign of Neptune. So here we have Neptune in Leo. And so Leo is there's a couple things. One is that he's absolutely applying that energy, that his pure being, to his own creative passion. He was a madman when it comes to pursuing rocketry almost at any cost, including to his own safety. He was absolutely inspired, absolutely fired up about this passion. It was everything to him. And Leo is the sign of creativity. It's the sign of, in a sense, pursuing your bliss, pursuing your joy. Joseph Campbell used to say, "Follow your bliss." Well, this is his bliss. He's pursuing his I am, his membership in the cosmos as part of God in a creative manner, just an ultimately creative manner. The joy that it brings him to discover these secrets that humanity is going to now move into the space age. However, it also means in a matter of leadership. So he was the driving force behind the team, even though he didn't have the position, he didn't have money, he didn't have clout of any kind, reputation. He was seen as an outsider to the college, and somebody looked at with a lot of skepticism and even derision by people who had degrees and who had more abilities and had written papers and who had more practical, down-to-earth ideas. And so this is also showing that he is acting as a leader. He is absolutely driving his team to do things they would never have done but for his influence. So he's wielding this cosmic force, this dissolving force, to almost say, throw everything that you have into this and don't worry about what happens next. So that's in Leo. Final thoughts on this. If you want to go further with this type of analysis, you can also look at angles that the North Node make to other planets. You can even look at angles that the ruling planet makes to other planets. So, you can elaborate this a lot further. You can look at other, so in this case, for example, with Pisces, you could look at things in the 12th house. Given the fact that Neptune's in Leo, you could even look at 5th house influences. So you can keep talking, you can keep expanding this analysis, but I just wanted to give you a basics of how to approach your own North Node. And so to review, you look at the house of the South Node and say, that's what you've been doing for aeons. Now it's time to focus on this area of life developed by the North Node. You say, I'm used to approaching things in terms of the sign of the South Node and analyze that. Now it's time for me to approach things, my mission or my evolution, in terms of the sign of the North Node. And then you look at the ruling planet and say, I can get help from that ruling planet. And you could also, by the way, just a side note here, you could also choose, in this case, for example, to use traditional planets. You might play with that. You could look at his Jupiter, which in this case puts more of an emphasis on the 9th house quest for meaning, in Aquarius being very visionary. And so in this case, you could look at also his religious fervor and how that influences North Node. So I'm just giving you one example. So you can consider that if you have something that's ruled by 2 planets, or it could be, look at both, take a look. Finally, looking at the sign in the house of the ruling planet. to figure out how you're going to apply that help, how you can work. So in his case, writing, communication, really using the gift of what's coming through, that cosmic force, that cosmic energy, that picture of returning things to the source that comes through when he writes and talks, and also in terms of how being a leader, so looking at the sign of that ruling planet of your North Node. I invite you to join me for my live, intimate 6-week seminar, The Elevation of Harmony, Astrology for Avatars. During each and every session weekly, the class members and I will discuss one feature or indicator of true will in your astrology chart. That's your deepest purpose. For more information or to enroll, please click the link in the description below this video. Thank you.